Hello, this is John Feldt, and this is the weekly water outlook for the southern part of the U.S. for August 11th, 2013. I want to start off today's briefing by taking a look at topsoil moisture. I don't like the coloring of this image, but I do want to sort of point out areas that have surplus or adequate soil moisture. The areas of lighter shades, for example, Kansas, areas down here in Alabama, those are areas that are tending towards surplus moisture in a few spots. Areas of brown are areas of adequate, and then the light brown are areas of deficit. I guess the main thing to point out here is this trend where we've gone from these three different shades right close together. There aren't too many parts of the country you see that, and that's saying that we're going from more of an adequate, or even in some cases a surplus moisture, through adequate, through below normal over a fairly short space of geographic extent. Another way to look at this is the departure from average greenness. This is based on satellite measurements, and it'll take a look at the measurement of current greenness compared to what is normal for this time of year. So if there's a lot of foliage that's growing well and crops growing well, you're going to be very green. If it's drier, you're not going to have as much. So we see areas of yellow, at least more of them in Texas, areas of green up towards the north in Oklahoma, responding to wetter conditions in that area. So here's the latest jet stream pattern. Pretty much like I've mentioned the last couple of weeks, not a whole lot of change. A ridge of high pressure in the west, area of low pressure in the east. The south is generally under the influence of the high pressure, with the exception of Kansas, northern parts of Oklahoma into Arkansas. That's right on the dividing line, and that's actually where it's been very, very active over the last week. But before I discuss that, let's take a quick look at the tropics. Tropics are very quiet at this time. Look how quiet it is out here. No activity at all. A little bit of development coming off the African coast, but it looks like a quiet time. Gulf of Mexico pretty quiet. So at least in the foreseeable future, it looks like it's going to stay quite quiet. There's still some dust off the African coast that's suppressing activity. And just take a quick look at steering winds here. Even though I don't expect any activity, it looks like this high pressure aloft here is really protecting the southeast U.S. And systems that come off the coast or develop out in the Atlantic are either going to curve up towards the northeast between these areas of high pressure, or they could come out far enough south to make it across this area and perhaps into the Gulf. But again, I think that's a long way out, and we'll have to see how it turns out. But if this high remains anchored here, that could hint towards a Gulf, maybe even a West Gulf track, but that's way out there. And like I said, right now I don't see too much development whatsoever. So over the last 7 days, observed precipitation. Look at this, lots of rain in Kansas, for northern Oklahoma. Red is 5 inches or more. Then we get into Texas. There is some rain, and this will be what we'll see again this week. There is scattered precipitation. In some areas, it's fairly modest over parts of West Texas. Eastern Texas looks pretty dry with lots of areas no rain at all over the last week. But this is that pattern we've seen. The action is up here. This is the axis of action, and then it decreases as we go off to the south. So very active in this area, moderately active in this area, and generally not too much action at all in this area. And that has been the pattern last week, and that looks like that's actually going to continue into the upcoming week. Quick look at percent of normal precipitation. Purple is well above normal precipitation. That's 4 to 6 times normal. Quite a bit of flooding actually in Missouri due to that heavy rainfall. Then as we get into Oklahoma, sort of a mixed bag. Northern parts above normal. Then we get into the below normal over parts of the central and eastern part of Texas. And that narrow band of moisture that's sort of streaking up in this area, more of a popcorn color, some reds and some blues, that's that scattered precipitation that we saw over the last week. Quick update to the U.S. Drought Monitor this past week. Areas of the darker red are the more extreme or exceptional drought. D3 is the brighter red. D4 is the darker red. Those are really the areas that are hardest hit. That's western Kansas, western Oklahoma, western Texas, and some spotty parts in central Texas as well. Now the jet stream hasn't changed a lot. It's not forecast to change a lot. I have green or blue, light blue, that was from last week. Didn't even change it this week. It looks like that's still what the pattern is. Later this week, it looks like it's going to maybe even dip a little bit more to the southeast U.S. And Kansas, northern Oklahoma will still be on that border between the low pressure to the east, high pressure to the west. But as we get down into Texas, more dominated by that area of high pressure. Now let's look a little bit further out, 6 to 10 day. Really not much change. We still have the same pattern. It's really pretty interesting in summertime how we've had this persistent pattern for over a month now, and really been driving both temperature and precipitation type patterns throughout the summer. Now, if you don't believe me, let me show you here. These are temperature anomalies so far in August. Blue are colder than normal or cooler than normal. Red is warmer than normal. There's that boundary right here. This is that boundary, and that's why we've been having so much precipitation between the cool air to the north, the warm air to the south. And this generally aligns with that upper jet stream pattern like this. So the cool air over here, generally warmer air down here. And it's been persistent, and that's why temperature and precipitation has been fairly consistent for quite some time. Okay, so how much rain potential over the next week? This looks very similar to the week before. It does look like it's going to be dropping a bit further south from Missouri into Arkansas. Maybe not quite as extreme of rain, but it does look like the axis of heaviest precipitation will be right in this area here, and then dropping off again as we go to the south. So I wouldn't be surprised at next week's briefing to be talking about above normal precipitation in this area right here, near normal precipitation here, maybe coming into northern Texas, and then really dropping off with well below normal precipitation over the southern part of Texas with very warm or hot temperatures in that area as well. So let's look at weeks 3 and 4 just to see if there's any clues to a pattern change. This is way out there, and I guess all I can say is right now it's green is above normal precipitation, red is below normal, and I don't think there are any strong tendencies one way or the other looking at this. There are some signs that there could be some scattered precipitation. We could trend a little bit back towards closer to normal over Texas, but I don't think the signs, at least to me, are such that show real conclusive changes to these trends one way or the other. So here are your takeaway points from today's briefing. Let's continue the existing trends. It looks like moderate, maybe even heavy precipitation in Oklahoma, Kansas into Arkansas, then trending down to below normal precipitation in southern Texas. Tropics are very quiet, and this looks like a persistent pattern for the next week or so, maybe trending back towards normal after that. What's up this week? Thursday, the long-range outlook and sector updates as needed throughout the week. Thanks for listening to this week's Weekly Water Outlook. I'll be talking to you again soon.